Well, it's a great day to have a great day. Now, joining me today is somebody that's going to be very fascinating. Her name is Simone Fortier. I think I said that right. Anyway, she is a strategist. Not a strategist. Well, I guess you could say that, couldn't you, Simone?
It's a lot of strategy what I do, absolutely.
Yeah. So she's a best selling author, a speaker, a brain based performance strategist, and her company is called the Fascia Training Institute. And I hate reading that off a cell phone, but that was so much information I couldn't contain it today. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. First, how did you get into what you're doing?
It's a long journey, but
Hmm.
my focus now is really those with persistent symptoms of concussion.
Yeah.
And so, how I got there was that was me. So, I discovered later in life I was diagnosed with ADHD. Autistic ADHD is kind of like the term. I have like the military brain, so hyper focused, high dopamine, very motivated. I need to finish. And why that's important is because as a kid, the hyperactivity piece, I did a lot of extreme sports. I got into a lot of like situations where I would hit my head. So I
Mm.
had over about 50 concussions as a child. So
Oh, my.
going back and recognizing that no, they weren't diagnosed, but my kind of like understanding now is like every time I saw stars,
Hmm.
every time I like felt dizzy, every time I had like a headache. So I'm like
Yeah.
really just counting those. So it was like multiple times. And then moving forward into being an adult, I had 6 diagnosed concussions.
Wow.
So mild traumatic brain injuries, but to the person, like to me, it's not mild, it's pretty major
Right.
because what started to happen is they started to accumulate like really the symptoms.
Hmm.
So by like the fourth one, I actually lost my hearing for 2 years. So I was deaf.
Oh, my.
And yeah, I was looking at going back into school, going to med school, and I was like all of a sudden I couldn't hear. And really on that journey, I've got 65% back in my right and about 75% in my left. And that was through really concentrating, really focusing on healing the nerve in my
Gotcha.
brain because physically my ear is perfect. So working on that and then just realizing I lost the ability to really articulate and talk. So I would
Hmm.
say things opposite. Like I would see you yesterday
Yeah.
instead of I'll see you tomorrow. And then I'll be like, oh, if people can see this, I'm pointing to the front of my head. I would go, oh, this is the occiput. Well, this is the frontal lobe. And then the occiput's in the back. So I would
Yeah.
do everything was coming out the opposite. And it just got kind of to a place where I was like, okay, I will control this. But I didn't really realize I was doing it. I was making my world smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So I went from working with
Yeah.
professional athletes and teams and all that sort of thing to then people who own the teams or older people. And that's really where I created a language and really how to teach this. But my world was getting smaller and smaller.
Right.
And my type of ADHD has a tendency to have suicidal ideation. And I had suicidal ideation my whole life until I created this program. And for 8 years now, I have not had it. But my whole
That's
life, I
awesome.
didn't realize that that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
And with head injury, that particular type of brain, the biochemistry, actually, it gets bigger and bigger. But my deep faith in God would always prevented it. But I always just prayed, please, Lord, take my life. And it never happened. And which is, I'm grateful in a way, but it's all of what I've created is from really my own experience. And then
Hmm.
having the ability to do the research, find the resources, even at the height of my sixth concussion, I read like thousands of papers and really thought there's a lot of information out there, but nobody's really created a treatment specifically for concussion. All the other treatments that I've experienced were designed for something else.
Right.
And then for my demographic, which I call the 20%, the ones that don't heal from blast trauma, head injury, all that sort of thing, they're
Hmm.
actually, all the treatments, what they need is opposite of the 80%. So
True.
I created a manual treatment, and I've been teaching it for 17 years to chiros, ATs, PTs, which are physical therapists,
Hmm.
osteopaths, and manual therapists. And really, in what's really cool with that is that in 2 treatments, it's resolving those persistent symptoms for like 40 to 70%.
And I love that you're teaching those to chiropractors too, because you hear this that chiropractors can help you with your brain injury symptoms, but to me, they have to actually know what they're doing for that. Because I've heard some horror stories where some chiropractors had no idea what a brain injury was about, and then they go in there and they make things worse.
So that's true because now there's institutes that are specifically training chiropractors for neurology. And
Yeah.
so if you have a concussion, a head injury, really getting adjustment on your neck is, I'm going to say, not optimal.
Yeah.
And that can put people really into fight or flight because their nervous system's already heightened. They're
Hmm.
dealing with the nervous system that's close to the brain,
Right.
and it can often make them worse.
Hmm.
Dizzy, it's so that is, it's not saying to chiropractors they only can do what's in their toolbox and they simply don't know
Right.
what they don't know. And before you can do that, you really have to take the brain and the body out of fight or flight,
Hmm.
or again, the symptoms get bigger and
That's
the
true.
headaches, migraines, the fear gets
Right.
bigger. Yeah. So yeah, it's teaching really it's the opposite of what functional medicine doctors have learned, chiropractors, physical therapists. It's the opposite. So it takes a minute for them to really understand that less is better. No matter how great their intervention or treatment is, it
Hmm.
doesn't work for somebody who's in basically the persistent symptoms like yourself, like I was. And these people can do rock star treatments. And then you're going home and you're like, wow, that was horrible. And so the practitioner doesn't really realize that because one, we'll just not go back.
That's true.
Yeah. And so they'll just disappear from that clinic, and or they'll be like me. I'm like very like, okay, that didn't work. I'm doing everything that you're saying. And then they think you're either a malingerer or you need psychological help.
Right.
And actually I just had a gentleman, he had a head injury at 13 wrestling with a friend. So from 13 to let's say he's around 50 now, his neck was really at a 45-degree angle.
Oh, goodness.
Mhm. So that changes one, your
That's a
balance,
lot.
totally. And his brain was so on fire. Like he was like hyper, 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 and high anxiety and high cortisol and all that sort of thing. And yeah, it really also too influences relationships.
Yeah.
But headaches, migraines, all that sort of stuff. And he was just like seeing traditional therapists, but he said he saw 10 high performing practitioners that were really highly recommended. And he said each one made him worse. And he said the last guy basically said all he needs is a psychiatrist
Wow.
and medication, which is there's a lot of people out there that experience that same thing because if somebody
Hmm.
doesn't have the right tool and they're not willing to look for it, they'll basically give the easy answer, which is go see a psychiatrist, go take medication, and sit on your couch.
Right. And what the people don't realize also is we think, oh, the term neurologist, we think that's only for brain injuries, and that is so not the case. I had a neurologist on one time who told me that they don't spend a lot of time dealing with brain injuries. I mean, it's everything about the brain, but the injury, there's not a lot that they go through. So they're throwing darts at a dartboard when you go to see them.
Right. So there's a difference between a neurologist and a neurosurgeon.
Hmm.
And so the neurologist is basically, I think a lot of research based and not a lot of practical. So, because in my first and second car accident, and I'm just using that as a time frame, that I had migraines too. So, I had migraines that were so severe. Really, and when you have migraines, you have the aura, then you have the hangover. And really, there was only about 3 days out of the month where I had clarity or no pain. And I went to a neurologist, and I watch people's behavior and what they do, and so he was in a cast. I'm like, so why are you in a cast? And he's like, well, I just had a motorcycle accident. And I'm like, you're a neurologist and you're driving a motorcycle.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, but I'll get back on it. And I go, you don't realize that that's going to impact your brain?
Mm.
Oh no, I'm good. And I'm like, okay, so there was such a disconnect from really that injury to his brain, and he's a neurologist and he's going to go back to do it. So again, it's an interesting perspective that he has,
Yeah.
but not the understanding. He didn't really understand my migraine,
Right.
right? And it was medication, medication, medication. And a lot of those make you feel weird, or they simply don't work,
Hmm.
right?
That's been my experience, is that everything that they do doesn't seem to work for me. And I
Right.
just one of these cases that you give someone, say, cold medicine that's supposed to knock you out. I'm on cloud nine going, what do I do now? So I've always had that experience. I'm allergic to Benadryl.
Yeah, yeah,
Not very
exactly.
many
Isn't
people
that
are.
interesting?
Yes.
And so what I call that is opposite day. So for the 20%, I don't know if you've ever been diagnosed with ADHD or being on the spectrum. Have you?
I've been told I am ADHD. I don't. I'll put it to you this way. One time I forgot my wife at the store because I went to
Because
get
you
the
were
car
depressed.
for us. I went to get the car and I left.
I've seen those on Instagram and TikTok lately, and they go viral. But I'm sure your wife wasn't very happy.
Oh, she was not happy. And I circled the building and came back when I realized, actually, I turned to tell her something. I'm like, where's she at? Oh, she's in the store. So I came back to pick her up and she was standing on the sidewalk. I thought, oh, good. She didn't see. Oh, she saw. Not only did she see me, I pulled up to the stop sign and she reached for the door and I just took off. That's how focused I am sometimes.
Yeah. So the hyper focus. So being diagnosed by other people, so you could simply just go and get the diagnosis. It's not necessary. But what I found, my whole thesis and all my research is based on that premise, that those that are on the spectrum, neurodivergent, ADD, ADHD, are the ones that don't recover. They simply don't have the resources, the internal resources. And what does that mean? One, it means that in all the papers that I've read on ADHD, is that they're born deficient in at least 7 nutrients. So those 7 nutrients determine every thought that you have, how you sleep, how you heal. And that's going into the importance of food turning into a biochemical in the body. People have lost really that connection of understanding that it is either a fuel source or it's a toxin. And
Yeah.
so those on the spectrum are hyper aware. And I'm going to use that term loosely, and I don't want it to be a trigger word, but I'm just using it for ease. So on the spectrum, they're born deficient. They are also, you can't eat enough protein to get like the amino acids into your brain. Like you'd have to have like 10, 15, 20 steaks a day, and nobody can absorb all of that much,
Right.
right? And then you're in fight or flight, so that also reduces your ability to digest and
Hmm.
absorb. So it's kind of that cyclical thing. But what I found is that type of brain is genetic. So one of your parents has to have it. And so then you're born in a deficiency in those nutrients, and which leads to also to genetic testing. So with genetic testing, what they found, and because I'm on that same realm, but it's not all people on the spectrum have the same one, but genetically, a lot of ADHD people are born deficient in iron, but they're also genetically anemic.
Hmm.
Yes. So genetically anemic. And so they'll be cold. So then they'll go, oh, well, it's because you're always nervous that you're cold. So it's kind of the cyclical thing. But
Okay.
then going to pain meds. So with pain meds, and also to caffeine. So caffeine makes me tired and sleepy. And it's the opposite. And so that's kind of like what Ritalin was doing. You could give caffeine to a hyperactive child and it would calm them down. So it's like really heightening their dopamine or their brain and that neurotransmitter. And then all of a sudden they relax. So that goes into the self-stimulation. So it's not a dopamine hit for those who have high dopamine on the spectrum. What they're doing is they have to have so much information coming in so they can actually settle down. So the movement that they're doing all the time and that's really self-medicating to relax their brain so they can actually hear what people are saying. But people see
Right.
it as an irritant, right?
Yes,
And yeah.
exactly.
So I have a lot of kids and they're moving around. I'm like, go to it. I go, I'm on the spectrum. I don't do that anymore. I never really did it that much. I controlled it. It's mostly internal. But I would do certain things and people would be irritating to people. But it would be just to stay present. And so with the medication piece, that is huge. So stuff like oxycodone doesn't work. And it's like, because when I had neurological damage, I had a lot of physical pain. And so they gave me oxy. I'm like, well, I don't really want to take it. It's not going to do anything. And I don't really say that, but I'm like, worried about the addiction thing. I took one pill and it gave me more pain than my
Mm.
pain. And so you're understanding that.
I understand that. And I give a great example for that.
Hmm.
I had my left foot, I had to have a reconstructive surgery done on it. We found out I am allergic to morphine.
Hmm.
Yep. Pretty much any painkiller, I'm allergic to it. Yeah.
So that's that also to the hypersensitivity. So ADHD people are hypersensitive to preservatives and chemicals at
Mm,
the very least. So with head injury on top of that, then their immune system becomes hypervigilant to that and it makes it even bigger.
wow.
And so I can say too, so I've always had a mild allergy. Well, I had dermatitis as a kid to fragrances and it came out when I was about 10. And it's like my hands were totally like burnt.
Oh,
And my
wow.
skin was like they were red and burnt, and it's actually added a lot of like lines in my hands because they were just like burnt. And it was interesting now. I've gone to specialists who are dermatologists who specialize in allergies, and I'm allergic to every fragrance, including essential oils, including turmeric,
Oh,
anything
wow.
in food that has a fragrance. And so when I eat it, I just swell like crazy. And or if I touch it, then I will get hives.
Goodness. Is there any correlation between, like, say, psoriasis and this?
Yes. So psoriasis is actually, I think, also too an absorption issue and a sensitivity to toxins. So
Wow.
external, but people are eating, and this is a whole other topic that,
Yeah.
can be triggering, is that people are eating fake food. And
Yeah.
when, and when, they started to think of, it's like an engineer who builds their own building, the roof leaks. It's like looking at, let's genetically modify corn so we can feed the hungry. And it looks good on paper, but they didn't actually look at, well, can people absorb the genetically modified corn? And they can't.
Right.
So that's what's making people bloat and get bigger. And so they're doing that with so many things, and then like creating meat in a lab. Okay, so that's another very heightened thing, but that's all chemicals.
Hmm.
And the body, it may look like it, tastes like it, I don't know. but the body's going to go, that's a toxin. So then the body's going to get more inflamed. And this is kind of a conspiracy maybe thing, is like, do you want people so inflamed they can't actually be present as a nation? You know,
Yeah.
that is like a hugely scary thought. It's not just, oh, let's make it more convenient and have less cows because it's global warming. Well, I don't think cows are creating global warming.
I don't either.
Right, because it's like global warming, global cooling, climate change. But the one thing that is constant on the earth and in human beings and in animals is that change is occurring every moment, all the time, and you can't stop it. And it's going to happen regardless of whatever we do. So that is going to make people sicker.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think the food that we eat is making us sick. I remember, gosh, when I first started dating my wife, that's been a long time ago, but at the time, they hadn't really said things like, the hormones and things, but I used to say, I felt like chicken was making us sick. And she's like, why? Why do you think that? I was like, they're pumping it with hormones and God knows what else. What do you think that's doing to our bodies? People used to laugh at me, but now they're seeing that there's a connection there.
Well, it's a huge, huge connection. And it's changing how people think, changing also, too, if you're pumping those hormones in, it's
Hmm.
also changing, cancer rates, right? It's changing digestion. And the thing is, too, because somewhere along the line, the bigger the chicken, the better.
Right.
Instead of going, okay, let's have a normal chicken that doesn't have stress, that's, outside eating food and it tastes like a real chicken. Now it's like really rubbery, but
Hmm.
chicken is an interesting thing too, because I always call it a dirty bird because I almost died of salmonella in South America.
Oh my.
Yeah, so it was salmonella typhoid. So I
Yeah.
was in ICU for 10 days, and then I ended up having it for 3 months. And the infectious disease department called me because I got retested. And they're like, where did you get that? Because we've never seen that in North America. And so it changed my whole GI system. And that's also, too, made my allergies bigger. But also, too, what I noticed, well, not what I noticed, I became anaphylactic to chicken and eggs,
Oh wow.
because they have salmonella in them. So that's why they're like, cook the egg because it has, but they're like, people don't understand really what that means. And most people can process a little bit of salmonella, but chicken you can't cook it out of it.
Hmm.
So then you put hormones on top of that and
Right.
all those other things. And then it's unfortunate. Mass producing anything really makes it harder for us to digest it and absorb, and then puts our brains in more fight or flight, which then if we have injury, even like a physical injury, not just a head injury, the body is having a harder time to repair.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that. So
Hmm.
what happens when, say, a client comes to you? Have they already went down the gamut of all the treatments that aren't working, or are you getting some of them that are fresh off the boat and say, "Hey, I just had a brain injury," or what do I do now?
Well, I would like that. So, again, 80% of people are going to heal no matter what you do. So 80% their brain, they have the resources, they're not on the spectrum, they're just going to heal. So you could do almost any intervention, any treatment, and they'll get better. But the other demographic, which are usually highly intelligent because they're operating a high level, and then with the head injury, they're noticing they're not themselves. They don't have like the recall, the memory, the sleep. So they're getting more anxiety. And so those people usually see multiple practitioners.
Hmm.
And by the time they see me, they've probably spent, some of them, 40, 50 grand,
Yeah, I
and
believe
then
it.
all they've been given was an antidepressant, which really doesn't work
Hmm.
for the 20%. And so this is an interesting study too. So they, because I was reading the studies on the antidepressants, and this isn't everyone, but it pretty well sums it up. So they were doing a study on whether it works or not, right? So they have people doing the medication and then the placebo group. And the placebo group improved 33%. The medication people improved 30.
Wow.
And that was enough statistically for them to say that that works. So for 70% of the population, it doesn't work for, but they're giving it to everybody. And
Hmm.
it's like, I'm very meticulous about details and I look at studies and what that means. And I read it to the end because I have that autistic ADHD. I need to finish, right? I need to understand all of that thing. And so when people are like, oh, this is going to save you or heal you, and then it doesn't. But when you're looking at a 70% fail rate
That's too
and
high.
they don't market it that way,
Oh no, of course not.
no, no. And that's the big tool in the medical profession's tool belt is like, just take the pill. So
Yeah.
why they because so right now I think there's so much noise online, and this has been that way pretty much for about 10 years. Like AI's accelerated that, but then you've got Google and you've got people paying millions of dollars a year to be seen
Hmm.
for their treatment, their modality. And I think, like by the time they come to me, they've like researched and tried everything. And
Right.
what I say to them too, I'm like, okay, but there is a hierarchy to healing. So these modalities will work, but if your brain's in this state, so if we get your brain here, then let's go back and try these other things because it takes a team really to heal concussion. But for the 20%, it's a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is so important to healing,
Hmm.
right? Because you can't heal when you're running from the bear. You're running, 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 running. And even if your arm got cut off, you broke your leg, you're still going to run because your brain is telling you you're going to die.
Yeah.
And so then eventually you just lie down and play dead, and the bear's circling you. And that's when people go into that numbness phase
Hmm.
where they can't make one more decision. It's just like they do what they have to do and then they collapse at home. So
Yeah.
that can also be police officers, military. They are on. They go home and they sit in what's called like the dream chair, and they just sit there all night until they're switched on. And so that's the numbness phase. And I've also noticed this with abusive relationships. So this might give some clarity to some of the people listening. Is like, why didn't that lady leave? She's a high performer. She's good in business. There's even a police chief that came out and said she was abused by her husband. She didn't leave.
Yeah.
And it's really coming from the brain. The brain can't make one more choice, and any change can be a threat.
Yeah.
And when you're in fight or flight, you cannot ask for help
Hmm.
because that would admit weakness. And then also, too, then the predator could kill you. So that's
Right.
all done in the reptilian limbic brain, and it's not conscious. And so I've worked with some ladies. One lady actually got kicked in her forehead from her boyfriend so
Oh,
hard there's actually a physical dent. He
wow.
wouldn't take her to the hospital because then he'd go to jail.
Right.
So he let her suffer for a whole week. And so she came to me because she was having physical pains and whatnot. And I went through like just the introductory stuff. And she goes, you're the first person who's never told me to leave him. And I said, well, you're unable. You don't have the internal capacity to make that choice. And once you build that up, it will happen organically, and no one needs to tell you to leave
Yeah.
because you know you need to, but you simply cannot.
Hmm.
And it really gave her such clarity and that somebody understood what she's going through, that it's really hard. And that's the extreme thing. But even making a choice for dinner,
Oh yeah.
you know,
I know that
it's
very
like,
well.
yeah, it's like, I don't know, just decide. I can't decide, right? And then, but some people end up doing is eating the same thing over and over.
Oh, I could eat the same thing every day of my life. My
Mhm.
wife, not so much.
Yeah, and so that's all coming from really the brain.
Yeah.
and the capacity, and nutrients give you the capacity to choose. And also too, if you're not sleeping, you're not really releasing growth hormone,
Hmm.
which then is repairing everything,
Right.
right? So it gets into that cyclical piece as well, that the symptoms and really your brain can't heal if you don't have that sleep.
Very true.
Hmm.
Yeah. One of the first things they say, oh, you get lots of exercise. And I'm thinking, have you ever went to the gym with a full on migraine and said, let's get on this treadmill? I don't think so.
Well, okay, so there's a study that was done actually out of University of Calgary, and it's highly publicized. They talk about it at the brain injury summits. And again, for the 20%, it's exactly opposite of that. So I'm like, okay, um, they go do it until it doesn't hurt. And I'm like, well, that never occurs for the 20%. It just gets worse. And they
Exactly.
don't really understand that demographic.
Hmm.
So I'm bringing to the forefront a language that a lot of these people who are rock stars in their research are not aware of. So there is a lot of resistance, but people who were like me, like you, they get it. And I'm
Hmm.
there to serve them. And it's like, no. And so how I kind of instruct people to start exercising, sit on a recumbent bike for a minute. If that makes you worse, then you stop, because that's a
Yeah.
brain exercise. It's not a physical exercise. And then the next day you come back, and then you might be able to do a minute and 5 seconds or not, because a minute could be a whole week. And that is actually, um, I think, the best approach, because exertion can really impact people like yourself and like I was. It's like even bending down, my head would explode.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you want to put weight on and then run or anything like that. It just
Hmm.
doesn't work. And they don't understand that. But you've got the 80%, like I said, anything they do will work. So you can get them on the bike right away, and then that circulation actually helps their brain. You could easily go into a steam shower or red light therapy every day. That also helps with no exertion. But for them, that's like, oh yeah, they could go do that,
Yeah.
but not people like us. They
Right.
can't do that. And then they just drop out of that study, or they just stop doing it because they're like, I can't live like that. And I had one lady, um, she went through all of this recovery from a concussion clinic. And she said, yeah, I pushed through it and the pain was so big and it really helped. And I was like, talking to her, she's like so incoherent. She Her languaging is off, all those things. So I'm like, to myself, because she thinks she's better, I'm like, you're actually worse than you were,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's, again, bringing out the knowledge and the information to a bigger group of people, so
Hmm.
that it reaches that traction. Because like, we're going back to the internet, there's so much noise on there. People talking
Right.
about concussion, people talking about fascia, people talk, and I'm like, you really have to experience those things to really understand how they work. And I teach in person. I do have some online courses for theory, but every class I teach, I ask them, could I teach this online? They go, no, this is so specific. And even when I'm teaching them, the positioning of their hands, they move it because what their brain is seeing isn't actually what I'm doing, because everybody has their own filters. So if you go and
Right.
look on YouTube to how to do your own treatment or crack your own neck, and it's out there.
Oh no.
It's out there. You have the potential of doing a lot of damage, because what
Yes.
you are seeing isn't really what they're doing, because it is two-dimensional.
Hmm.
And you just really, your brain can't grasp that. And also, too, our brain deletes and adds whatever it wants to make sense.
Right. Like the confabulation.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So that's just it would be awesome, because then it could help so many people if you could just teach it on YouTube, but you can't do it. And when you're
Yeah.
dealing with the brain, being safe is the best option.
Plus, every brain injury is different. If you've seen one brain injury, you've seen one brain injury.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and each person, each brain is unique. So I have a brain health assessment. It's called like a brain reset program. And I've had like close to 5,000 people do the test and the assessment. And not one person is the same. And even when that person retakes the test, it's different. So that's
Hmm.
just saying everyone's biochemistry is unique,
Yeah.
and what their needs are unique.
Hmm. And I guess what really bothers me is that latter part that doesn't get better with treatments, they eventually give up and say enough is enough. They don't keep pressing to find the answers.
Yeah, and that's going into the numbness, complacency. And I see people coming to me in the clinic. They're like, I've seen everybody. They're very distrusting. They're
Mhm.
very angry because everyone who said they could save them or resolve their symptoms in a week or 2 weeks, have been a disappointment. So that goes into despair.
Yeah.
And I think giving people hope, but realistic hope,
Yes.
and okay, what you do every day matters. Let's start getting your brain used to doing these things. And yeah, it's just amazing. And so with what I'm teaching, every practitioner has to do 2 case studies. And the rock stars do more. And one, it shows, one, can I teach it? Two, can they replicate the results? And the results are off the charts. So in 2 treatments, people are improving 40 to 70%
That's
with
awesome.
with persistent symptoms for 5 years or more, which is huge. And then we're asking people if they're ADHD, self-diagnosed, medically diagnosed, on medication, and pretty much everyone in the study that isn't getting better has ADHD or ADD.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's a demographic that are high performers, and all of a sudden they're not. So again, the despair's there. And then looking at like my brain nutrition program, which can be done anywhere in the world, really, that they can get it. Those people are improving the same just from the nutrition. So together they're very powerful, but it's like the nutrition piece is hugely impactful. But it's the one thing. So we keep collecting data all the time, and so in this latest one, my first study that I presented, I didn't have a control group because I was like, ADHD people think differently. I'm like, well, all these people are the control group because they've seen multiple people for 5 years and it didn't work. So this is their baseline. But in science world, they don't like that. And
Yeah.
so I had multiple practitioners do kind of like all the intake. And we did the testing, and they did other treatments on them. And all those people got worse without my dynamic brain healing. Now, isn't that interesting? They all
That
got
is.
worse.
Yeah.
And the one that I really focused on, which was cool, and so my stats now, because we do a preliminary stats, and then I have it at a PhD guy from Harvard. He's going through it right now. But suicide ideation decreased 65% in my group.
That's huge.
And then in the comparison group with other treatments, nah, zero.
Wow.
So that is like hugely impactful
Hmm.
for those that have the suicidal ideation and preventing that. So that is really my passion, because also too, I had the suicidal ideation. I didn't know that that wasn't normal. I just thought everyone had that.
Yeah.
And then until I didn't have it, I go, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have it, right?
Hmm.
And it's possible not to have it. And, just talking about, I had the opportunity a long time ago to work with Claude Lemieux. And he just committed suicide now 2 weeks ago. I think,
Oh,
well, two
wow.
and a half, 2 weeks ago or so. And it could be longer depending on when you're listening to this. Um, and I'd worked with him like when he was with the Phoenix Coyotes and then with San Jose. And this guy was like the nicest guy, the best athlete. He did everything right, ate right, did all these things. And then I saw an image of him where he was carrying the cup. And I'm like, wow, it looks like he's on, and this is, not a medical diagnosis, but my personal diagnosis is that it looks like he's on medication for Parkinson's because his movements were so robotic. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's really strange. And then what was interesting, I reached out to a few of his colleagues, some ex NHL guys. I'm like, call him, call him, call him. And 2 days later, he committed suicide.
So
I know. And so the guys that I told to call him, they're like, we can't deal with the fact that if we called him, it would have not happened. And I said, no, because like 6 months prior to that, I was reaching out to his son on social media because I had lost his number. You change phones and all that stuff.
yeah.
And his son doesn't know who I am. So he didn't reach back to me because I was like, I really felt compelled to connect with him again. And so it's just like, it's part of the journey. If you get this in front of people like that, one, it also helps with stroke people with Parkinson's, and all that sort of thing, and to really prolong the symptoms as long as possible.
Mhm.
And really stopping that is part of my journey, my path. Is like, let's stop it before it happens. I've even had the opportunity to work with some kids who tried to commit suicide and weren't successful.
Mm.
And one gentleman, was 18 and he was 12 when he shot himself.
Oh wow.
And so his whole temporal lobe, like the side of his head, was removed, like from the shot. But he was high functioning, he could still do school, but needed assistance. And I worked with him, and he's like, he had the opportunity to really share his story because his mom's like, no, he didn't really want to do it. It was an accident and all this stuff. And he said, well, actually, that's not my story. He said, my story is, yes, I went into your room, I got the gun, came back, and pulled the trigger because of how I felt internally. And that's also, too, probably ADHD kid, trauma, head injuries, was in sports. And he goes, but the second I pulled it, I didn't want to do it.
Mm.
So that's very powerful information for people who, know somebody who's committed suicide, that often after doing that, and usually males are successful because they choose um, weapons or means that actually follow through. So males, when they're suicidal, they're more likely to take action, whereas as with women, traditionally it's a call for help, so they'll do pills where there's enough time for somebody to actually intervene. So both really don't want to do it, but their brain is in a place of such
Yeah.
despair and pain.
Mm.
Physical pain does the same thing. It's like,
Oh
I
yeah.
can't take this one more minute, it's
Hmm.
too much.
Yeah.
And you have the thought, I'm either going to give this all up or there's got to be a solution,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
that's what's going on.
I think a
And
lot of people just won't talk about it because we see when someone says, I don't feel like going on anymore, oh, well, the first thing that they want to do is institutionalize you. Let's see what's going on with you. And I think, especially guys, too, because, guys already don't want to talk about their feelings. And then you have a professional saying, do you feel like taking your life? Well, of course, we're going to lie to you. We don't,
I know, and so
yeah.
what's really kind of cool is because I have ADHD, I have that very military direct brain, very rigid in some ways. But they feel safe with me because, one, they know what, they can't lie to me, and they can't because I understand all of the ADHD tactics. But when I'm asking even the young kids, like 10 years old, so suicidal ideation, nah, yeah, but I'm not planning it. And so I had one kid, he was 18, and he goes, well, I have planned it. And I go, oh, so what way? He goes, speed. And I'm like, well, speed's not a really good one because your chances of living from a car accident is about 95%, and then you'll be crippled. And then he's like, oh. And it's interesting, you can talk like that. I can talk like that to that type of brain because then I match them where they're at. I'm not going, oh, yeah, that's wrong, or oh, let's work your feelings out. I'm like, okay, let's address it. And then go, okay, that's not really a good way. And then let's look at going another way that really helps your brain calm down so you don't have those feelings. And it makes sense to them. But
Mhm.
if you coddle them or show weakness at all, which is what some people do in that profession, they're very caring, but that doesn't work for men.
No, not at all. Especially for men. Yes.
Yes, it doesn't work for men.
Yeah.
And, I've done all the analysis and stuff of my type of brain, and really it's 95% are males and then 5% are females.
Wow.
So that's why I have that affinity to working with both, but really primarily working with men and boys and stuff to help them get their brains back. But I also help women too. But it's a very different approach because mine is so direct. They have to be able to accept that
Hmm.
because I'm not going to coddle them because it doesn't work. It hasn't helped them to now. It's, in ADHD people, cognitive therapy is really doesn't work for them because they're super smart
Yeah.
and they will placate and manipulate and see how smart that psychologist is or psychiatrist. And then the psychiatrist or psychologist think they're doing a great job. And really, they've not changed anything.
So true. So
Yeah.
true.
Yes, yes, yes. I know. I've experienced this. I've been working with this, and it's like I help those people that other people can't reach.
I love that. So, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, they could email me info@simonefortier.com or also to info@thefasciatraininginstitute.com. Or I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a really great way because there's not a lot of noise there
Yeah,
and your messages kind of stay in one spot. They don't disappear whenever Facebook feels like you need to download another app for messages.
that's true.
Yes, it's horrible. I'm like,
It
I
is.
have been getting messages and now I don't because now I have to download another app on top of an app.
Uh-huh.
So direct is always great. And yeah, we keep track of that or LinkedIn at Simone Fortier. And so yeah, I just really am there to support people and really give them the resources or ask the right questions. That's the
Okay.
first thing is knowing the right question to ask your medical professionals.
For people that live too far away, are they able to do anything with you virtually?
Yep, I can do the brain reset program. We can do the assessment. I can get a program organized that way. And so that can be done anywhere really in North America. And
Oh,
then I do have a clinic in Calgary and I have a clinic in Arizona. And I've been teaching practitioners. And really, I need more practitioners because only certain cities have people. And this is really exciting, is I'm partnering with Dr. Amen's group
really?
to, yeah, yeah. So
Love
to,
that.
yeah, bring the research out to a bigger audience. And they actually, one of his team members saw me speak at the First Responders Conference, and he reached out to me and he's like, "Man, we want to partner with you because what you're doing, nobody else is." And they want to further the research as well. So it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
I love that. Yes,
Yeah,
Dr. Amen is very great.
he is. And he's got 11 centers across um, the United States.
Hmm.
But some of the thing is that this demographic is also to a missing link,
Yeah.
right? My treatment is a missing link for what they offer.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of collaboration there, and also to getting that spec imaging because we're doing objective testing, but also self-reported. But with that, it's showing, yes, the brain is actually changing. And so
Wow.
yeah, it's super
That is so
exciting.
cool. I love that for you. That's great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know he's super cool.
Yes.
Mhm.
Before we go, I would like you to at least mention the book that you wrote. And it's a children's book, right?
Yeah, it originally started off as a kid's book for a 3-year-old who had ADHD, hypermobile, falling downstairs. Took her to a doctor to do some balance testing. She's like, no, she's totally normal. Like she'd look at her and then turn away and she would fall over. And I'm like, okay, that's not great.
Right.
So then basically, okay, these 10 exercises in the book, and she did them and no longer fell. Also helps with learning issues. And then I was doing another kind of filming, and I had two 11-year-old twins. They were in martial arts. The 5-year-old was showing the 11-year-olds who were in martial arts could not do these exercises
Wow.
because they used all momentum and
And
not balance in their brain. And
yeah.
so she's like a little rock star. So she's sharing it all over the world. And then another story is my veterinarian had a stroke,
Oh,
and he would come to the house and this and that, but he finally did after like 6 months off, and he was slurring his words. And he goes, I can only do general checkups now because he goes, I can't do surgery because I don't have the fine motor skills. And he was from Eastern Europe. So I'm like, okay, here's my book, How to Beat Brain Burps. I go, here's my book, do all the exercises in it. That's all, because he's from Eastern Europe, also to a director thinker. Just tell him what to take, do the book and do the exercises. And he did. And I saw him 2 months later. He goes, that book is not for kids. That's for stroke. Look at me. He goes, I'm doing surgeries. I'm not slurring. And he goes, I do those exercises every morning. And that's how powerful movement can be to recovering. So it is on Amazon, and it's called How to Beat Brain Burps by Simone Fortier. You can also get it off my website, Simone Fortier, and I think it's on the Fascia Training Institute too. And there's videos in there. So on Amazon, it's just the book, and then online you can get really the PDF and then the video streaming of that as well. But it works for Parkinson's, stroke, concussion, and then also to learning disabilities and balance for kids. And although it looks like a cartoon book, it's not. It's very powerful.
awesome. I love it. I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. It's been a great wealth of knowledge. And you know what? If you ever want to come back, door's always open.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been an
Yeah.
honor.
Guys, thank you for watching today's program. Read the notes in below in the description because I'm going to link everything that we talked about today in the description. So and make sure you get that book because that book is going to be a life changer. That's all for today. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
This is me, my life rewired.